Racist couple threatens to kill black waitress in restaurant, they get instant karma. What if a single mother working as a waitress at an upscale restaurant was humiliated by a racist couple, only to turn their cruelty into a viral moment that changed her life forever? Keisha Williams, a 29-year-old single mother, moved through the upscale dining room of the Silver Spoon with the grace of someone who'd learned to carry heavy burdens without breaking. Her thick braids were neatly pulled back, her uniform crisp despite the long hours, and her smile was a practiced shield against the world's sharp edges. To the patrons of Atlanta's most exclusive restaurant, she was just another server, nameless, invisible, a backdrop to their opulent lives. But to her 5-year-old son, Xavier, she was the world. Keisha grew up in Mechanicsville, a neighborhood where gunshots punctuated the night and hope was a luxury few could afford. She'd seen friends fall to the streets, family to addiction, and dreams to despair. But Keisha was different. She had a fire in her, a dream of becoming a journalist, of telling stories that mattered, of giving Xavier a life where he wouldn't have to dodge bullets or expectations. Every shift at the Silver Spoon was a step toward that dream, even if it meant swallowing her pride and enduring the casual cruelty of the elite. The Silver Spoon was a glittering fortress of privilege, its clientele a parade of CEOs, politicians, and celebrities who tossed $100 bills like confetti. For Keisha, it was a battlefield. The microaggressions were constant, a patron snapping their fingers instead of saying her name, a woman clutching her purse when Keisha approached, a man smirking as he asked if she'd ever worked somewhere nice before. She endured it all for the paycheck, for Xavier's school fees, for the tiny apartment they called home. But tonight, something felt different. The door chimed at 7:32 p.m., and Keisha's eyes flicked toward the entrance. A couple stepped in, their presence commanding the room like a storm rolling in. The man, mid-40s, wore a tailored navy suit that screamed money, his cufflinks glinting under the chandelier's light. His salt and pepper hair was slicked back, and his smirk carried the weight of someone who'd never been told no. The woman, draped in a red designer dress that clung to her like a second skin, moved with the confidence of someone who knew every eye was on her. Her blonde hair was swept into an elegant updo, but her eyes were cold, scanning the room as if she owned it. Keisha's instincts prickled. She'd served people like them before, arrogant, entitled, quick to dismiss anyone they deemed beneath them. She approached their table, her smile polite but guarded. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady. "Welcome to the Silver Spoon. I'm Keisha, and I'll be your server tonight." The woman didn't look up from her phone. The man leaned back in his chair, his eyes raking over Keisha with a mix of amusement and disdain. "Keisha, huh?" he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Let's make this quick, girl. We're not here for the scenery." Keisha's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. She'd heard worse. "Of course, sir. May I start you with drinks?" The woman finally looked up, her lips curling into a sneer. "Oh, listen to her. So proper," she mocked, her voice loud enough to draw glances from nearby tables. "What's with the braids, honey? A bit too urban for a place like this, don't you think?" The words hit like a slap, but Keisha's face remained a mask of professionalism. She scribbled their drink orders, scotch for him, a martini for her, and walked away, her back straight, her heart pounding. In the kitchen, she leaned against the counter, taking a deep breath. "Just another night," she muttered to herself. But something told her this wasn't just another night. As the evening wore on, the couple's behavior grew bolder. They beckoned Keisha to their table with exaggerated gestures, snapping their fingers like she was a dog. "Hey girl," the man called, his voice slurring slightly from his third scotch. "Where's my drink? You slow, or something?" Keisha delivered the drink with a tight smile, but as she set it down, he leaned forward, his breath sour. "I bet you've never even tasted something this good," he said, his eyes gleaming with malice. "What do you drink, huh? Kool-Aid?" The woman laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that cut through the hum of the restaurant. "Oh, Richard, stop," she said, but her tone egged him on. "She probably can't afford anything better than tap water." Keisha's hands trembled as she cleared their appetizer plates, her mind racing. She wanted to snap back, to tell them exactly what she thought of their smug faces, but she couldn't. Not here. Not when Xavier's future depended on this job. She turned away, her chest tight, and retreated to the kitchen. But the couple wasn't done. Later, as Keisha delivered their entrees, the woman dropped her napkin on the floor and smirked. "Pick it up," she said, her voice dripping with entitlement. Keisha hesitated, her pride screaming, but she bent down, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. As she straightened, the woman leaned forward, whispering loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "That's where you belong, isn't it? On your knees." The restaurant went quiet for a split second, the air thick with tension. Keisha's face burned, but she forced herself to walk away, her head high. In the back, she pressed her hands against the cool steel of the counter, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. She wasn't just angry, she was humiliated, stripped bare in front of strangers who saw her as less than human. Then it happened. As Keisha passed their table again, the man flicked his cigarette, the burning tip grazing her arm. The pain was sharp, immediate, a red-hot sting that made her gasp. The woman laughed, pulling out her phone to record Keisha's reaction. "Look at her jump," she cackled, zooming in. "This is going viral." The other patrons chuckled, some uncomfortably, others joining in like it was a game. Keisha's vision blurred, but she refused to let them see her break. She excused herself to the break room, running cold water over the burn, the pain a cruel reminder of her place in their world. In the break room, Keisha leaned against the wall, her breath shaky. The burn on her arm throbbed, a small but angry red mark that felt like a brand. Javier, a fellow waiter and one of the few people at the Silver Spoon she trusted, noticed her distress. "Keisha, what happened?" he asked, his voice low. She shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. Javier's eyes narrowed as he saw the burn. "That's assault," he said, his voice tight with anger. "You need to report this. They can't get away with that." Keisha laughed bitterly. "Report it? To who?" "Management. They'll just tell me to keep quiet. These people are untouchable, Javier. You know that." But Javier wasn't having it. "You're not invisible, Keisha. You don't have to take this." Something shifted in Keisha then, a spark igniting in the ashes of her humiliation. She wasn't invisible. Not to Xavier, not to herself. She pulled out her phone, her hands still trembling, and opened the camera app. "Next time they call me over," she said, her voice low but resolute, "I'm recording." That night, after her shift, Keisha sat at her tiny kitchen table, Xavier asleep in the next room. Her laptop glowed in the dim light as she dug into the couple's identities. The man, Richard Hargrove, was the CEO of a tech conglomerate, known for his ruthless business tactics and a string of lawsuits from former employees alleging harassment. The woman, Cassandra Lyle, was a socialite with a massive social media following, her posts dripping with performative philanthropy that masked her elitist views. Keisha's journalistic instincts kicked in. She scoured articles, lawsuits, and social media posts, piecing together a picture of two people who thrived on power and cruelty. She saved screenshots, downloaded videos, and took notes, her anger fueling her focus. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about every person they'd ever belittled, every worker they'd treated like dirt. The next day, she enlisted Javier's help. He had a knack for tech, and after some coaxing, he agreed to hack into the Silver Spoon security system to pull footage of the couple's behavior. "This is risky, Keisha," he warned, but his eyes gleamed with the same defiance she felt. By the end of the week, they had crystal-clear video of Richard flicking his cigarette, Cassandra recording, and both of them laughing as Keisha flinched in pain. Keisha didn't stop there. Using burner accounts, she sent anonymous tips to local activists and media outlets, planting seeds of exposure. She knew the risks. If management found out, she'd be fired. If the couple traced it back to her, they could ruin her life. But she was done being silent. The Silver Spoon's annual gala was the event of the season, a glittering affair attended by Atlanta's elite. Richard and Cassandra were there, seated in the VIP section, their arrogance on full display. Keisha worked the event, her heart pounding as she moved through the crowd, her phone hidden in her apron pocket, still recording. She'd spent days planning with Javier and a sympathetic member of the audiovisual team, Marcus, who'd seen the footage and was eager to help. "These people think they're untouchable," Marcus had said, shaking his head. "Let's show them they're not." As dessert was served, Keisha gave Marcus the signal. The lights dimmed, and the massive screens around the restaurant, usually reserved for slideshows of the restaurant's history, flickered to life. The footage began to play, Richard's sneering voice, Cassandra's mocking laughter, the cigarette hitting Keisha's arm. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the couple's faces appeared, their cruelty laid bare for all to see. Richard froze, his face paling. Cassandra's martini glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. The room was silent except for the audio of their insults, echoing through the speakers. Keisha stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room, her heart racing but her voice steady. "This is what happens when we let the privileged treat others like trash," she said, her words cutting through the silence. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the burn scar, still raw and red. "This isn't just about me. It's about every worker they've humiliated, every person they've stepped on. We're done staying silent." The crowd erupted, some in shock, others in applause. Richard stood, his face red with fury, and stormed toward the exit, but security blocked the doors. Someone in the crowd had already called the police, and within minutes, officers arrived, their presence a stark contrast to the gala's glamour. The fallout was swift and brutal. By morning, the footage had gone viral, shared across social media with hashtags like #SilverSpoonScandal and #JusticeForKeisha. Richard's company issued a statement distancing itself from him, and within days, he was forced to step down as CEO. Investigations into his business practices uncovered a trail of misconduct, and lawsuits piled up. Cassandra's social media empire crumbled as sponsors dropped her carefully curated image shattered by the truth of her cruelty. Keisha, meanwhile, became a symbol of resistance. Activists reached out, offering support and platforms to share her story. A local news outlet offered her a part-time reporting gig, and a crowdfunding campaign raised enough to cover Xavier's school fees and her tuition to finish her journalism degree. She spoke at rallies, her voice growing stronger with each appearance, turning her pain into a call for change. 6 months later, Keisha sat at her desk in her new apartment, a small but cozy space filled with Xavier's drawings and her books. She was halfway through her first semester back at school, her articles already making waves in the local paper. The burn scar on her arm, once a mark of shame, was now a badge of her courage. She opened her laptop, pulling up a draft of her latest piece, a deep dive into the systemic racism faced by service workers. As she typed, Xavier climbed onto her lap, pointing at the screen. "Is that your story, Mommy?" he asked. Keisha smiled, kissing his forehead. "Yeah, baby. It's our story." The Silver Spoon was quieter now, its reputation tarnished but its staff empowered. Keisha's actions had sparked a reckoning, not just for Richard and Cassandra, but for an industry that had long protected the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was fighting, and she was winning. For Keisha, the burn mark wasn't just a reminder of that night. It was a symbol of her strength, her refusal to be silenced, and her promise to Xavier, that no matter how hard the world tried to break them, they would rise.